Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down the massive new Canada-BC Build Community Strong Fund and what it actually means for the real estate market. We are talking about a historic influx of capital aimed squarely at the housing crisis. But, as you know, the devil is always in the details, and the market reaction to this has been absolutely fascinating to watch. So let's jump right in with the big $40,000 question. Is a potential $40,000 per unit savings enough to jumpstart British Columbia's stalled multifamily housing projects? Because right now, across the province, we've got developers sitting on the sidelines, essentially waiting to see if the math is finally going to pencil out. To get to the bottom of that, here's our game plan for today. We'll look at the $5 billion housing fund, decode the development cost charges, tackle the condo conversion controversy, get a municipal reality check, and finally, go over exactly what this means for you. All right, part one, the $5 billion housing fund and a historic federal-provincial partnership. Let's look at the sheer scale of this official announcement from Prime Minister Mark Carney and Premier David Eby. We're talking about a total commitment of more than $5 billion for BC's local infrastructure over 10 years. But within that broader package, a staggering $3.2 billion combined is specifically targeting a 50% reduction in development charges for multi-unit housing in what they are calling priority communities. The federal government is bringing nearly $1.6 billion to the table, and BC is matching it dollar for dollar. This stated savings of up to $40,000 per unit is also meant to expand housing-enabling infrastructure. Think things like water systems, wastewater, and local roads. Moving on to part two, decoding development cost charges and the mechanics of the market. Because to really grasp the impact of these savings, we first need to understand the fees themselves. You likely know the drill, but let's quickly reframe it. Development cost charges, or DCCs, along with the newly introduced amenity cost charges, or ACCs, are built on a simple benefiter pays principle. They make sure developers cover the infrastructure demands their specific projects create, rather than passing all those heavy costs onto existing municipal taxpayers. Take a look at how this plays out in the real world. Municipalities, like the city of Nanaimo, carefully categorize these eligible projects. You have your core services like sewer and transportation falling under DCCs, while community benefits like daycares and public squares are funded through those new ACCs. But here's where it gets really interesting. Enter Bill 46. This recent enabling legislation has significantly expanded what DCCs can legally fund. Local governments can now add massive, costly infrastructure categories like fire protection, police facilities, and amazingly, even provincial highway interchanges right onto the developer's tab. As these levies skyrocket, they increasingly eat into revenue that would otherwise go to land costs or developer profit. And that is exactly why a 50% reduction could literally be a game changer for project viability. Part 3, the condo conversion controversy. Are we looking at a supply solution or a developer bailout? Because the fee reductions aren't the only major intervention we are seeing today. The numbers from the CMHC paint a pretty stark picture. With over 4,300 completed and unabsorbed units, Vancouver is sitting on its highest unabsorbed condo count among major Canadian markets. In response, through the Canada-British Columbia Partnership on Condo Conversion, the government is stepping in to leverage financing tools to acquire more than 2,200 of these vacant units. Now, this is where things get heavily polarized. On one side, proponents and the government see this as the absolute fastest available route to getting occupied, affordable housing supply online. On the flip side, financial analysts and market observers vehemently argue this creates a moral hazard. They see it as a taxpayer-funded bailout that prevents developers from taking necessary losses, while actively protecting major banks from disclosing impairments on insolvent deals. Mortgage broker Ron Butler really hit the nail on the head when describing the intense pushback from industry insiders. Critics point out that developers enjoyed a massive bull market for 2 decades, and they argue that a true capitalist market correction should let insolvent developments fail. The theory is the government could then buy them at rock-bottom receivership prices, rather than what is being perceived by some as bailing out developers at the top. Okay, part 4, the municipal reality check. We are waiting on the details, because making a massive political announcement is one thing, actually executing it at City Hall is a whole different beast. As Burnaby Mayor Mike Hurley points out in this public letter, critical definitions are entirely missing right now. For context, Burnaby's combined low-density residential charges are over $81,000. That's enough to make anyone do a double take. So precisely how this 50% cut is calculated, whether it includes those new amenity cost charges or regional charges from Metro Vancouver and TransLink, changes the math completely for a developer's pro forma. And to complicate things even more, local governments, like Naimai, shown here, are already deep in the weeds updating their own complex, multi-year DCC and ACC bylaws to align with the new provincial legislation. Integrating a massive new federal-provincial discount program into these local financial models just isn't going to happen overnight. Right now, municipalities are essentially in a holding pattern waiting on the fine print. Which brings us to our final section. What this means for you and actionable takeaways. How do you actually navigate this landscape if you're a developer, an investor, a buyer, or a realtor working in BC today? Here is the crucial takeaway. We know DCCs and amenity charges are a massive share of the per-unit cost of multifamily construction. If you're working in the Capital Regional District right now, you know we have a lot of stalled condo and rental projects thanks to the pre-sale slowdown. A 50% reduction completely changes the pro forma on these stalled projects. However, you have to treat this as a medium-term supply signal, not an immediate green light. Whatever you do, do not promise developer or investor clients that municipalities like Victoria, Langford, or Saanich qualify for that $40,000 reduction. That priority communities designation simply hasn't been confirmed yet. You've got to watch for the official program terms, which are expected in fall 2026. So I'll leave you with this to chew on as we wait for the dust to settle on this historic intervention. Is the Build Communities Strong Fund the catalyst BC needs to clear the backlog and stimulate new supply? Or is it merely delaying a necessary market correction? Keep that question in mind as the official program terms are finally revealed. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and we'll catch you next time.